Hello, I'm Claire and I'm here to help you get better at ballet. And it's all about the little things, and it's those bits and bobs that really, really matter when you're wanting to get really, really good at what you do, or just be the best that you can be and make the most of your classes. Okay, so and these tips can be used with any kind of system that you're learning. It doesn't have to be limited to ballet even. These work for modern, street, jazz, everything. For today anyway, my tips are all about travel and spatial awareness. So really being aware of the space you're dancing in. Dance was not meant, most dances are not meant to be on the spot, just jumping up and down, going like that. Yes, or just going side to side. Yeah, they use up a whole space. Normally you've got a stage, or it might be somewhere outside, but you've normally got an area, a three-dimensional area. If you're choreographing, you have to take that into account. You have to think about the high levels, the low levels, the mid levels, and really not necessarily using every single square inch of the space you're in, but really thinking about why the dance moves from one side to the other, or where you're going in the dance, what you're trying to represent. So a lot of that comes into the actual choreography. As a dancer, you then have to make the most of that choreography and put it into the space that you have available. And again, we can be quite limited on that. It might be you're dancing at home, you've got your 2 meters square, which obviously we all had during lockdown. And I've spoken about this before. I literally had to choreograph all my exercises so that you'd travel a little bit forwards, but then straight away you'd travel backwards. So you never really had more than 2 steps next to each other, because I knew my dancers would be running out of their space. So there are all sorts of different things that come into how you create a piece of dance to fit a space. Today I'm talking about how, as a dancer, you can really make the most of the space you have. First of all, for any space, if you've got a dance or even an exercise, and it's not like a petit allegro where it's literally just jumping on the spot sometimes, um, I recommend mapping out your dance. Okay, literally getting a piece of paper, getting a pen, and deciding where the audience is, and then literally starting at the start point and thinking through the dance and draw a little floor pattern of where you're going to go, where you need to go within that space, so that you know that you're really making the most of the space as the choreographer intended. Okay, and that works for any space, big, small, anything. It's really good to have a visual representation in your head of where you're actually going. It's very rare that you're just going to go from one side to the other. They're going to be diagonals, they're going to be circles, there might be a little bit of side to side or up and down. And it's really important that you know what you're doing at what point. Okay, so 2 types of space that we have. Well, actually, thinking about it, we have a few more, just to make it awkward. I'm just thinking of different size, shaped spaces. Yeah, we have big spaces, we have small spaces. Those are the 2 ones I was going to talk about, but I've literally just thought, well, you might have a really shallow, wide space, or really deep, narrow space. So again, things can be adapted to accommodate those types of spaces. But I'll talk about those in a sec. If you've got a really big space, you have to make every step count. You don't want to keep your little dance into a 2 meter square zone. You want to spread out. You want to make every step count. You want to make every leap fly across the stage. Yes, it needs to go up, but it needs to fly across the stage as well. So you're really being dynamic with your movements. Some movements will be directly on the spot, or you might even be quite static for a moment. At that point, you think about the travel, the path that your fingertips are taking as they make a movement. Yeah, so you're not just going, oh, I'm going to put my arms to second. You're thinking it goes through first to second. Okay, so it's really important to think about those things as well. When you're traveling, think of getting down into the floor. Really use your plie, bend your knees and push off your back foot. So you're really putting the wind behind you. Imagine you've got someone pushing your back along. I'm really quite short and I can travel quite well because I bend my knees and I push forwards. As I said earlier, make every step count. And, really, really, you still don't change the movement. So if you've got something that is vertical, you don't want to change that, but really make sure those moments where you travel, really push forwards or really push back, have fun with it. Try and see how far you can push yourself so that you really expand yourself to fit the space. If you're in a small space, this is where we have to be strategic, really strategic. It might be that you have a sequence going around the room that involves hops and jumps. I can think of a specific exercise in the RAD syllabus, for example. In the grade 3, the Grand Allegro is a combination of hops and leaps. And if you have limited space, or even if you're in a big space, you still want those hops to be vertical. You don't want the hops to travel forwards. So you have to be really specific, really strict with yourself. Make sure the hops go straight up and down so that you have enough space to fit in a beautiful leap at the end. And this works for really well for small spaces. So again, mapping it out, but really thinking about, oh, actually, no, that bit is vertical or it stays on the spot. So then I can really show my lovely extension of my legs and make a beautiful travel forward on the leap. Yeah, so be really strategic about it. Also, in a small space, you need to really think about using every millimeter that's available to you. Yeah, so literally, if you're going round in a circle, you want to go right as if you're from center stage, you might want to run forwards first, then go right as far to the side as you can, then go up the side and then back. That way, you're really making that circle expansive so you can really run. You don't want to be making your steps smaller to fit the space. You want to make the movement or the travel as wide as it can within that space. And as I said, be strategic about it. So you might need to travel forwards and then round and back. Yeah, as opposed to just going round and back. Yeah, so think about that. Think about where you can really make use of the width or the depth of your space. And those are, as far as large and small spaces, the main two things that I really think are quite helpful. When you're doing a circle, I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but when you're doing a circle, you're traveling what we call en manège in ballet. You might have heard a different term for it, but anyway, when you're going around the room to help you with balance as well, if you're doing a turning sequence, you need to have really clear places to spot. So go along the edges of the room. Yes. If you're doing leaps around the room, go along the edge of the room and turn a corner. It will still look like you're doing a circle. If you're in a group doing a circle, you definitely need to go in a rectangle or square around the edges of the room. Go to the corners and then turn the corner, to the corner, turn the corner. It sounds really methodical or maybe incorrect, but seriously, believe me, if you follow the dancer in front of you and you're doing a lovely circle, you'll follow the dancer and the circle will get smaller and smaller and we'll all end up in a little bundle in the middle, which we don't want. Okay, so to keep it expansive, use the whole of the room. Go to the edges of the room. Okay, and that will again make use of a good space, but it will help you keep in that lovely circular formation as opposed to shrinking into a tiny little bundle. If you try to do a sequence that's spotting going around the room and you're thinking in a circle, it's really hard to find the spot to spot on, for want of a better word. So, for example, if I'm doing it as a square, I know I can spot at something in the wings as I go along the back. I know that there'll be an entry light, an emergency light that I can spot on as I'm going down the side. Again, as I go across the front, I know there'll be something in the wings I can spot. But if I'm changing my spot every time I do a turn, I'm going to get very dizzy, lose my spots, and end up again probably spiraling in the middle, feeling very dizzy by the end of the dance. So those are my tips with regards to traveling around in a circle. So I mentioned that really wide spaces or really narrow spaces. If you're dancing in a space that's a bit of an odd shape, this is where you really have to think about your alignment as well, because it's very easy. If you've got a very wide space, if I turned to face the corner of the room, I'd almost be sideways to the audience. So again, really making sure you're facing the corner of your little box, and that will help you with your alignment. But also you have to respect the shape of the room for your travel. So if you're doing a diagonal line, it's going to be a much more shallow diagonal if you're going from a corner that's right wide out there to a corner that's right wide out the other side. You're going to have to be thinking and adapting that accordingly. So that have a real good think about that. When you map out your dance, think about the shape of the space that you're dancing in as well. So be really specific with that because that can affect it. I have one more tip. If you're doing, and this appears quite a lot in the Royal Academy of Dance, RAD syllabi stuff, so this is why I'm mentioning it, but I'm sure it appears in other things as well. It might be that you're starting in a corner and you're going to do diagonal going in one direction and then a diagonal going in the other direction. The temptation, if I'm starting up in the corner, upstage right, for example, I'll start upstage right and I'll look at the corner downstage left and I'll head towards that. If you do that and you're good at traveling, you're likely to go, find yourself downstage left, and you have no space to do your second diagonal. You're going to end up going straight across the stage, possibly sideways onto the audience, which might not be the best angle for that choreography. So if you're ever doing something or a piece of choreography where you're going to be doing a diagonal, changing directions and going to another diagonal, aim for the middle of that other side. So if I'm upstage right again, look at downstage left, but then come back and look at the center of that wing or that wall of the studio. Head towards the center of the wall. That way, your diagonal, I'll try and sort of depict it here. Your diagonal will go along and then it'll turn the corner so that then you get to downstage right without hitting downstage left. And it means both sections of choreography on a lovely diagonal. That's my tip for that bit. So that's pretty much it about space. Yeah, definitely think about making the most of all the space. Also think about which movements are using the vertical space, which movements are using the floor, and really get down, yeah, and really bend your knees if you're meant to be bending your knees, or really get on the floor. If there's floor work, use the floor, enjoy that floor. So really make the most of the space you're in and enjoy your dancing. If you'd like to dance with me, check out bridgeballet.co.uk. You can book a class. Or if our schedule doesn't work for you, join the bridgeballet.club. And that way you can dance with me anytime, night or day. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like and share this with your friends. And let me know in the comments below how you get on. Thank you. Bye.